So Kenya, that's the main reason you went over there for that pastors conference that we held.
Right.
We support a lot of guys in Kenya, hundreds of guys, and I think 3 different groups. Tell me about it.
I got to see all 3 of those groups. Yes, the main reason I was there was for the conference in Eldoret, Kenya, and I got to meet over 200 some pastors. But before I got there, I visited Jerry Daniels, his ministry, and really Jerry started for the first 3 or 4 years, I think, in Eldoret. And he started there. I got to visit the first church he ever started. I got to see the first convert that was ever his first convert. There was this elderly man who's lame, and he was out in the grass, and he was laying there beside the road. I'm not sure what the deal was. He had some canes with him, and one of the men I was with went out and said, that man right there was the first convert of Jerry Daniels. And went over and shook his hand, and he's laying in the grass, and I went over and shook his hand. But Brother Jerry moved over to an area where there was hardly anybody there when he first came, and it was on the edge of this huge, vast area of Maasai territory.
Sure.
The Maasai are the ones you hear about who hunted lions, for a right of manhood, and they would drink blood and things like that.
Carry the spear and the big
Yes. They believed all cattle in the world belonged to them.
Right.
And
it's convenient.
Yeah. These guys were neat. It was neat to finally meet them. He's right there in Nanyuki. And you head out to the west is this vast area of... It's like you would see in an African film with the giant rocks and everything. The one thing that surprised me was there's so much cactus out there. These people live in an area where everything has thorns. It's like everything, not just cactus, but the trees, the bushes, everything has thorns. And still there's elephants, there's lions running wild out there, the leopards. They still build the aboma fences around them that have thorns that protect them from the leopards at night. The leopards and the jackals will still come in and try to steal goats from them, things like that.
So it's classic Africa.
It really is.
You've seen a movie about Africa.
The elephants are roaming wild. In fact, these men, these pastors that I'm out there, their complaint is not like a dog or a raccoon getting into your trash. It's an elephant crossing through their territory, rubbing up against their home, or breaking down trees on their property. In fact, one pastor was telling me he's one of the poorest ones I met. And he's got holes in his roof, and the rain comes through and everything, and he's been sick, and he's been still trying to serve the Lord. And he's telling me that, hey, we're trying to cut down all the cactus around here because the elephants come in and try to break it open and get the nutrients out of it, and they just destroy our property. And so I saw all kinds of places.
House over.
Very, very possible.
Whoops.
Yeah. They had a rogue elephant that was pregnant and had its baby right on the road.
Oh, no.
So they've got a lot of elephants, and the zebras run wild. We almost ran into a giraffe at one point. It charged out from behind a tree right in front of our vehicle, and we had to slam on the brakes. So that's the area this is.
Right.
Just wild animals everywhere.
Wow, that's neat.
But these guys, they still live in this territory. It's like a reserve for them, and I don't know how large it is, but I keep saying vast, and I mean that's the only way I can describe it. You get up in the mountains and the hills, and you look out across there.
As far as the eye can see and farther, then.
Yeah, it's huge. You can see all the way to the north. You can see distant mountains clear in the north, and I know that some of them are trying to reach even that far, where they're traveling out there to hold meetings. I met someone with a power pack on the edge of this territory who was heading up north to a village. He said there's just like naked children living there, just so poor. And he said they were going to show the power pack that night.
Oh, wow.
So I got to hear some stories. One of the neat things is the man, I can never remember his real name because he's got 3 names, but then they all call him Kalasinga. And I can't remember even what that means, but everybody knows him as Kalasinga, and he's got to be in his 60s or 70s, I think. And he has this huge burden. He has preached all over Maasai land, and he's starting churches everywhere across that territory. And he has this vision to have a church in every single village. So he'll do it too. he is a fireball, and he's got all these guys still working under him he's training to go everywhere. All these men.
Wow.
He's neat, and like I said, he's in his 60s, 70s, something like that. And there was a village near him that they said, we don't have the ability to care for this child, and most everybody out there has 5 to 8 children. But this particular village, the parents said, we cannot take care of this child, and the village said, we're going to kill the child. We're going to kill her.
Kill the child.
And so Kalasinga and his wife very up in years, they've already had so many children. You
Sure.
know, he said we'll take in this child, and so when I was there was this baby that she's holding. She's holding this tiny baby, and then they had a camel out back, and they said the only way they're able to provide for this baby right now is it's so young that they're feeding it milk from the camel.
Camel milk, huh?
Yeah, a lot of people with camel milk. All over that area, you go in every home and you have to have milk tea. They call it tea, but it's boiling milk. It's like a pot of boiling milk, and then they just add tea flavor to it, tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, it's mainly milk. It's the traditional thing to drink, and so you go into a home and you always take tea.
Wow.
Always. So you do that many times a day.
So even as poor as they are, they're all very generous, at least. You know?
They really are. And always, you cannot go into a home, they would tell me, without them giving you something, offering you something, whatever it may be.
Wow.
And these families, it's against their culture if their neighbor is starving to not help their neighbor. So even if they have just a little bit of food, they'll take in the neighbor's children.
And these are men that are actually supported by Final
Yes.
Frontiers. So imagine if they didn't have that support.
Right.
It'd be even worse. Wow.
Travel is tough too. You walk for miles. Some of them told me stories of walking for miles and miles. One guy took me to an area where he was ministering to like a camp. They've been there for so many years that they've grown their families up on it, you know. But they're from all over Kenya. One guy was from Somalia. One guy was a Muslim man from over the border in Somalia. And the man who's there ministering to them, in his off time, he's a carpenter. It's how he makes extra money to supply his family. And so he built the table and chairs in this Muslim man's home.
Right.
And he learned the Somalian language. And he's able to witness to him. And he's heard the gospel many times. But his wife hadn't. And the man actually invited us into his home. We went into this Muslim man's home. And the two preachers were sharing the gospel with him and sharing the gospel with his wife.
Wow.
And they said his heart's tender. One of these days there'll be a conversion there where he'll understand
That's
the
amazing.
gospel.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Wow.
The whole Nanyuki area, there's a lot of experiences I had there. Jerry Daniels has a church there, and he's got a school there that I was able to see. And then Stephen, who's over a lot of those men. I mean, he had one man there that was cut up by machetes just because he was out ministering and trying to help children, and then going to disciple a family. He was attacked. So even the persecution happens there. But I got to see a lot of the men that Jerry Daniels has helped train, and now they're training themselves. You know, they're repopulating, they're reproducing themselves. It's neat to see.
That's amazing.
But with those guys, I actually hitched a ride with 3 or 4 of those pastors, and we went cross-country west over the Great Rift Valley, and we went on to Eldoret, which is like the city of champions, they say. A lot of the runners, the marathon runners,
Like the Olympic
come out of there.
runners?
But it's a sad story, because city of Eldoret was one of the ones that in their last elections got hit worse than almost anywhere as far as tribal violence. So you have these tribes where Kenyatta is the president now, and I believe he's Kikuyu, but then you have the Luos, and you have the Kalenjins, and you have just all these different tribes. The Kalenjins and the Kikuyus are like become mortal enemies at that time when the elections take place. There's been tribal war there that we don't hear about a lot of this stuff, but if you were to look back when it happened, there was just miles of just burning homes and sad stories that I could go on forever about sad stories and terrible things that happened. I met people who went through things that they said, I can never go back there because, you know, we were driven out. The memories of it. I was with one pastor after the conference who took me to his home. He was so glad that somebody came and visited his home where his mother is, and she cooked for us. And he took me around his property, which is now farmland, but it was where his home was, and it was being burned down around them. And he got his wife out the window, and then he was shoving the kids out the window. And he got out, and the smoke was so bad, he ran the wrong direction and got shot with an arrow. And his wife and the kids fled down the hill. She was yelling for him. And then he hid behind a rock, and then he's out there showing me, I hid behind this rock, and then I hid behind this tree, and I prayed, and then I fled to another farm and spent the night not knowing if my family was alive, you know, and then they found each other the next day after the night. And this went on just all over for days. I heard a lot of really sad stories that would break your heart. things that were just really nasty that happened.
There's a lot of people that need the Lord there.
Yes, and some of them have suffered so much, and yet they've stayed in the area where tribal violence happened, or where they were attacked, even in more recent years, by people, their wife or themselves, and they stayed there, and they're still ministering to those people, and they know their testimony.
After all of that,
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing.
But a lot of the men, especially from an area called Burnt Forest, where I was able to go in and get their stories and see. There's one place where the church still hasn't been built. There's just no money to rebuild it. And
Right.
he showed me his land, showed me the crops that he's trying to grow to try to provide his family with something or sell. But I met a lot of these guys, and at the conference I was able to hear some of their stories. And you know what? The smallest group is that group right there, the one that has been persecuted the most, the one from Burnt Forest. You had some huge groups of men in the fellowships. They're broken down into fellowships all over Western Kenya.
We're supporting something on the order of about 150 guys to start one. So he would have
And
to
over
break them down.
200 came actually to the conference, and not all of them were supported, but they all were out there so grateful, for what Final Frontiers is doing. And they would come up to me and thank me. And they would be out there just listening and so thankful for what we are able to do to help them.
Imagine what we could do to support all 200 of them.
Right.
What more could be done?
They were so grateful. I mean, you saw the Bibles that they brought back. And you got this Bible where you think of a signature, but you've got 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more pages in the back.
Page after page.
All these pastors.
That's really special.
Yeah.
They
are thankful. They are very thankful. The conference was beautiful. It was. It's neat to see them minister to each other, preach those messages. They just ate it up, and they were so thankful for the fellowship. Some of them hadn't seen each other in many years. And we do have a video where we were able to edit some things together, so that should be online, where if people wanted to see it, they could watch the conference. Just see some highlights of it.
That's
what
wonderful.
went on. It's like every pastor there wants you to come see their church.
Yeah.
And they're so proud
There's just not enough time to see
come
everything.
see my people.
Yeah.
Come see my...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's great.
I do remember I was with one pastor, and besides all the sad stories, I'll try not to tell those, but there's this one guy, or no, this one lady. She's really young, and their dad died, and she's trying to help her sister and her mom, and the pastor took me there. I think it was John Thumby. He took me in. He said, "I want you to meet this girl, but she's trying to help support her family, but she pulls out this book. She's in charge of Sunday school." And he says, even if I'm visiting another church or something, he says, she never misses the church service. She's so faithful. She's more faithful than me. and she pulls out this book of all these Sunday school kids, and she's got everyone, the names and their birthdays and everything all listed. And there was like over 100 in that book that she keeps track of and she visits, and that's like
one
her
church,
life. Yeah, and
Imagine
that's just one. And he shows me all these different people. We would go into their house. We would have milk tea. we would eat a little bit of bread or something. We'd pray for the family.
Yeah.
We met them one-on-one individually and saw how they lived and the few chickens that they have, or if they have a well or not. We met all these people. I mean, one of those ladies actually lost her brother in the tribal wars, and they didn't know what happened to him for like a year. And
no.
And they finally find the body. It was just so sad.
Goodness.
That kind of stuff just really hurts these people. But from there, we went down into Kisumu, which is closer to it's like the eastern edge of Lake Victoria. We were in the mountains that is on the
So you
southern
actually
side of it.
drive down?
Yes, we got on a van, and that was interesting. The phone wasn't working very well, and the man I was supposed to meet was telling me, drive another 3 miles and you look for someone in a white shirt. And I'll be waving on the side of the road. And
Everybody's waving on the side of the road.
he told me how many miles to drive, and the phone connection wasn't working and it broke off, and so I jumped on this van and told him, this is what I'm looking for. I'm only going so far. We finally figured it out. I finally met, because I didn't even know what he looked like, but I was looking for him. And we got to a city, and then he took me out and threw my bags in an area, and then we took off to another church, and I got to meet 4 pastors right away. And this whole school of children came out, and they were singing the most beautiful song I heard in Kenya, honestly. It was a beautiful song. I got up and I told them that. I said, this is the prettiest song I've heard. These children really, really can sing some beautiful things. you know, just not even instrumental or anything, just their voices. But this is a different ministry. There's a lot of preachers here that are not supported. I think we only support about 20 or so.
This would be Tom?
This would be Tom Okeyo. He kind of lives up on the side of a mountain, and his village is one thing I want to talk about, but up on the top of that mountain you get up to where his church is, and then you can just see Lake Victoria down below stretched clear out. You can see it in the distance. They said the rain is not good on their side. Their crops don't grow as well. They don't get the rain like they did. The rains this year were late too, and so everybody was still trying to plow their fields. And
without enough water.
As soon as the rain hits, then they throw in the seed.
Okay.
And then the rainy season goes on, so everybody was really working their fields. I got some footage of that too, where the guys were out there working. They get up super early in the morning and go down. And this pastor, Tom Okeyo, he's helping a lot of the pastors around him, and even with some of his money, he's trying to train them in how to take care of a cow and how to take care of livestock. And he took me to one place where it was an extremely poor guy, and I don't think he's supported right now. No, he's not. He's not supported. His family, he's got like 6 or 7 kids. They were just eating just a little bit, very, very poor. But Tom Okeyo was able to get him a cow, and everybody in his neighborhood, everybody on the street said that cow's going to die. Every cow dies here. There's these ticks that get on them too, that give him this disease, and the cow will just drop dead. His heart stops and it drops dead. Wow. So everybody said, your cow's going to die. You can't take care of it. And he said, by faith, he said, this cow will not die. He said, God has given me this to help my family. God is taking care of me, and the cow has never died. He's got a big burden for that area. A lot of his burden also is for street kids. And when we did go into Kisumu, he got some kids together. He got about 4 or 5 of them together, which they run the risk of being picked up by the police too. But these kids told some stories, and if you could imagine a kid, you know, you wouldn't hear a kid over here saying this, but over there's like this teenage kid saying, I just want to go to school. You know, if I just had money, I can't eat. He said, if you would just give me just this much, just a little bit of bread, you know, just a couple dollars, it would feed me. It would feed me for several days, you know, if you would just give me just a little bit. And just to get them together, you know, we bought some bread for them, and just a little bit of what they needed, not much. And they each one of them told their story. We interviewed each one. He wanted me to hear their story. But I'll tell you, kids, the biggest burden I think there, and also for this brother Tom, is the children. The village that he's in is so poor that he said there's 5+ kids in every family. Mm-hmm. He said there's like 100 families there in that area. I visited a lot of them and went up around the mountains, and some of them are saying, oh, we want you to come back. There's just so few Christians that understand the gospel there, honestly. Sure. But they love you, and I can remember talking to one guy and just going back and forth on a few things. We were talking, and the one thing he said, I want you to come back. I want you to come back, visit my home. But the one thing that strikes me the most is 3 times we visited one family, and it's because there was 15 children there that do not have food. They just do not have food. These kids are starving.
This is in that same village.
This same village. He said they first heard of some children crying at night. You could hear it in the night, and so somebody finally decided to find out how they were doing, what was happening up there.
They're crying because they're hungry.
They're crying because they're hungry. Right now someone gave them 2 goats. There's not a lot of milk that comes from that goat. You can imagine 15 kids and 2 parents trying to live off of 2 goats' milk. Enough. They tried to make some porridge, and so I said, well, if we could capture this on film, we could show people what it's like. And so these kids, they called us up in the nighttime. They'll have porridge. They have these little cups, and so it's this hot orange drink. You can see this thick orangish drink that they're pouring in the cup. Mm-hmm. And then at night, it's goat's milk, and I don't know what they're putting in it, because he didn't even have money for cornmeal or like wheat or anything.
Just the most basic stuff.
Yes, they eat this called Ugali, which is basically just cornmeal, and most of them is a staple, mm-hmm. and they make that into kind of a cake, and everybody just takes a chunk of it and eats that. And
so forget about having enough protein.
Yeah, they're not getting meat.
They're not getting any protein. They're not getting any real vitamins. Just a little bit of carbs, starches, and that's it.
Yeah, it makes you think, because even for me, I was down in the pastor's house that night, and we had rice and we had some beef. And you felt guilty even for eating it, because that just like 200, 300 feet up the hill is all these little kids in there, and all they had was porridge.
What an opportunity for us with Touch of Life then, and Bags of Hope and Daily Bread. I mean, how often you go out and say, I could really use a cup of coffee. You go in, what's a cup of coffee now? $2, $3, even if you get it cheap at a gas station. And we don't think anything of it, but that $2, $3, I mean, that could buy maybe a pound of cornmeal for that little family there. Even a small amount.
Yeah,
could make so much of a difference.
I was asking him, what would this family, if they had their choice, what would they survive on? He said there was like a bag of wheat and a bag of cornmeal that they would mix together, and he said a bag of each one of those is like $32 for us, and he said for $64. To get those bags, mix that together, he said you could feed that family for a month. Is what he said. For 15 kids and 2 parents for $64.
And this is a larger family.
This is, most of them are 5, 6, 7
100
kids.
families, most of them have 5, so that's roughly 500.
Right.
But this family in particular has 15. Are these all their children?
Yes.
Okay.
They are. He said if you open up a feeding center there, he said immediately within 1 or 2 days you'd have 500 kids easily converge on the spot to say, yes, we need a meal.
I would love that.
I know.
I just don't know how I'm going to pay for it.
What's neat about it is both of his parents have gone on now, and his dad was a Christian. His dad was a teacher and loved children, and their home is sitting vacant just down the hill from him. I mean, you can walk down to it. Mm-hmm. It's less than a block away. You go down, and he said this is. He said we would donate this. He said in memory of his dad, just for kids. He said that here's this place, you could build a feeding center here, they could all eat in the grass. He showed me where you could put them. He said we could just have a kitchen right in here, but this building, he said, we'd give it to that if we could feed kids here. And it would help them. The thing is, it helps them reach these families. If you help feed a child, the pastor's able to go in there and say, it's because of the love of Christ that this is being offered to you, and we want you to know the message of the gospel. And it helps him get into that, because a lot of these families, a lot of the ones I talk to, do not know the Lord. Yeah. They really don't. And to show them that generosity is to show them the love of Christ. It's neat.
It's amazing.
But he would donate that property, and he said they would love, he's been wanting to for years to be able to help those kids. It would help him reach that village. Yeah. It really would. But that's a need. That's a need. 15 kids in one family.
We've got to get more support for them. Yeah. I mean, it's easy for us to go over these countries and we see this, and we hear this all the time, presenting it to the people here in the States. Yeah. How do you get that message across? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, you just pour your heart out. You can pour your heart out and tell them what it's like to see these kids. Yeah. I think one of those kids in that family, she spoke good English. And her desire, she was almost embarrassed to say it, but she wants to go to school. She wants to get through it and be able to help support her kids. Her brothers and sisters. Yeah. She's like, I want to go to school so I can figure out a way to feed my brothers and sisters. Yeah. And she's like, what, 13? And she's telling me this? Yeah. That's her dream. That's the only thing she can see. She wants to help her brothers and sisters.
If she could just go to school.
Yeah, if she could afford to go to school. And there's a lot of pastors there that could really use support. And I met guys, not just among that village, but even outside of it, that were going to the border of Kenya, and they're completely unreached people groups, where he's saying, I want to reach these people. Nobody's working here. There's no churches. There's nobody. And these people are completely untouched. Yeah. And you could partner with guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're working hard.
Anywhere you go in the world, there's people who share the same vision.
Sure. Yeah. God's touching people's hearts everywhere that we'll never even know their name. Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. Wow. What a trip.
Yes.
That's amazing. Amazing trip. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I keep this journal. I got pages and pages and pages of things. Stuff that happens, You can't tell it all.
Yeah.
You can't even remember it all.
I know, right?
So many faces.
That's why you wrote it down, so you don't have to remember.
Right.